All right, welcome to Bass Lab, New Mexico. This evening I'm sitting down with Kelly Wilson, my good friend, and we're just hanging out here. And we've got some of his basses here, and we're just settling in for a nice little visit.
Yeah, man.
You are somebody that when I think of jam bands, psychedelic music, what's some terminology that you like to use for that?
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. I know jam band really covers a lot of stuff. And the psychedelic music too. Yeah, man, for sure. It's really, I feel that kind of covers more of a little bit different than some of the jam band. You know, it's a little bit more even out there, I think, like really more improvisational in a way, a little bit more funkier. But yeah, I think even those two terms kind of covers it a lot.
Yeah. I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about the Grateful Dead. And Jessica and I were listening to the Grateful Dead sort of in preparation for this interview. And I had this thought that there's some element of non-judgmentalness about jam bands because people are okay with a little bit of experimentation.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like that's true?
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially with the Dead, it's like no two shows were ever the same. I mean, they didn't play every song structured the same way or solos were the same way night after night. I mean, it really was just what's the mood, what's the vibe from the audience, like what's the vibe even from Jerry or Phil or any of the guys in the band, like what happened on the way to the gig, just can really kind of change how they're approaching the show, in a way. So it's yeah, I mean, it's really just a lot of all that, so I mean, that's what I love about that stuff, because like you don't have to just be so stressed about following some crazy order of the tune. I mean, there is some aspects that that people are waiting for in some of those songs, like that certain riff or that sound, that like especially from Jerry, and so that's really just I think what they really got off on was just what's going to happen next, so
Yeah, and they had their own boundaries and melodies and places where they, I'm sure, could improvise, but a lot of love and acceptance from the audience too,
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a little bit different from that maybe more, I want to say Western culture of like, no, I want to know what I'm going to get, and I want it to be the same, and I kind of want a predictable piece of art or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah. And they had their nights too, like where just everything just totally bombed, whatever, just wasn't what they weren't feeling it, or just, someone stepping on someone's toes maybe, or Bobby's coming in at the wrong time, to sing a next verse or whatever, and it's like the audience, you can just hear them laughing and just kind of enjoying it all, and so it's just and they just let it go and we're just moving on, so.
Yeah. And I feel like music is a conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I didn't have the same conversation yesterday that I did today, and I won't have the same conversation tomorrow that I did tonight. So why should we play the same thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's depending on what you do.
Right.
If you're a songwriter and you have your song and like that's how it goes, like that's cool, that's the piece of art. But when it comes to just jamming and improvising, and you've done a lot of that. And when did you start getting into music? Have you always been a musician since you can remember? Was it always the bass?
It wasn't always the bass. No, I actually started out playing trumpet.
Trumpet, really?
Yeah, started in the middle of 6th grade. Played trumpet all the way through high school. Marching band, jazz band, concert band, all that stuff, And really, it was going into my senior year, my best friend Jesse, his cousin came down from Seattle, from Bellingham actually, and he was a bass player and a great singer. And so this would have been early 90s. And so he brought all this super cool music with him. He brought just this energy that it was just like super cool to us up in Los Alamos at the time, that we, New Mexico is always kind of delayed as far as like what's coming in and what's hot on the scene. We kind of hear it later on down the way. And so when I first saw him play bass and, those guys, there was Devin Stovall, who was a great drummer, musician there in town. Steve Donahue was a killer guitar player. And once those guys got all together, it was like, holy smokes, this is amazing, covering Rush tunes and Zeppelin and, doing some Primus tunes. And it was like, what is going on here? And so I got really turned on to the bass at that point, just of its power and just how cool it was, how cool he looked, playing bass. And so pretty much after that, after my senior year, I was done with trumpet. I wasn't the greatest reader. I really memorized just a lot of fingerings as far as like how I was playing. So I wasn't a great soloist or anything, but I could play pretty much what you put in front of me. But going into college, I didn't want to play my trumpet in the dorm room or something, just because it's just so brash and harsh and just, loud. And so there was no getting around a lot of that stuff, even with a mute or whatever. And so I pretty much just bagged it. I had gotten my bass my senior year up in Los Alamos Music. And it was this brand called Vester bass, which was like a no-name, whatever. That's just what they had in there. And thought that was the coolest thing. And then just kind of started hashing out some things, I mean, he showed me a couple little whatever lines here and there, but I was pretty much just kind of diving into some tab and trying to figure out how tab worked and just listening and just trying to figure out how slap bass worked and all that. Cause that was cool, man. It's like, I love slap bass,
Yeah. So what year are we talking about? This is
92, 93.
Yeah. And, slap bass was it more popular then? I know it was really popular in the 80s. So maybe in the 90s, it feels like slap's popularity is it goes up and down, It
does.
I can't track it, but
right. And I think I got really into slap just because of Les Claypool, and all of his crazy style.
Very innovative.
So really throughout my freshman year in the dorm room, I was like having Frizzle Fry and Suck on This album from Primus playing and just trying to just figure out his, his slap and his strumming and just his, very innovative, unique style that was just kind of his own thing, that really blended and morphed a lot of stuff together. But yeah, really a lot different than like 70s or 80s from like Mark King, Level 42 or Stanley Clark, kind of a thing. I mean, but, and I dig all of that stuff too, but I was really turned on to the whole morphing of a lot of these different like right hand styles and even some left hand mutings and all this kind of crazy stuff, So
yeah, that's interesting. I do the left hand mute thing too, where you play a note and then you use the next finger to sort of just rest on the string a little bit. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
I did that instinctually, and then I heard that Rocco Prestia used to do that too.
A lot of ghost notes and whatnot.
That's so cool that you did that too.
Yeah.
It's not a very conventional technique. People don't talk about it too much. Okay, so your end of high school, getting your first bass, you're really turned on by the bass, and it's kind of a new direction for you, kind of musically. You're excited, and then what happened next?
It was really just trying to navigate college. I was going to school down there for graphic design down at New Mexico State.
Okay, so you were at New Mexico State?
Yeah, down in Cruces. And so, and in the dorm rooms there too, there was a good friend of mine, Doug Snyder, that lived across the way. We had our rooms opened out to this courtyard area. So he would be over there. And he was playing bass too. I mean, he's an overall musician, just really great. And he was playing some Fishbone, like Bone in the Boneyard. And it was like, what is that even? Like, holy smokes, I mean, that's a whole different thing going on. And just connecting with a lot of those local musicians down there, trying to figure out some of the jam stuff too, you know. And so we had a couple bands that I was in back in the day. We had a band called Motor Bungalow, which was Adrian Belew from, I think it was one of his albums or something like that. But Adrian Belew from King Crimson, because we were just a trio then, and those guys were really into. The drummer was like hated to play anything 4/4. You know, it was like it's got to be crazy, it's got to be like prog rock kind of stuff, and just something really interesting. And then I was in another band called American Rescue, and it was like that was really what started the whole jam band stuff for me, and learning how to navigate through a bunch of musicians that are just, there's no format. We don't know what we're doing. You know, we're just, you know, passing a joint around and everyone's just playing E for half an hour or 45 minutes, you know, but we're just trying to, what's he doing? You know, just, you know, starting to develop the ear, really listening to what's happening. What's the conga guy doing? What's the guitar player doing? You know, like what's all going on there? And just trying to at least kind of make some sense of it all, you know? And so that was for about few years, and met my wife down there. And so kind of refocusing a little bit of stuff just of early family life, and kind of a little bit burnt out on school, not really sure I wanted to do the graphic design thing anymore. And then that's when we just kind of decided it's either now or never, and I'm going to go to music school, you know? So sent out audition tape to just one school, because I was looking at the different schools, and there was Musicians Institute in Hollywood, and that was like, nope, not with the family. I'm not going out there to Hollywood with the family. There was Atlanta Institute of Music, and it was like same kind of a thing, just of really hot, you know, just not really sure about that whole Atlanta area. Didn't really know much about the South over there. And then there was Minneapolis, which seemed kind of a friendlier place, kind of a more community based as far as like what I could tell, never even having ever been up there before, you know, just of the vibe I was getting from reading their catalogs, who was teaching up there. And that's when we decided, you know, and that would have been late 97, 98 that we went ahead and made that move. And that was trucking up my wife and our little 1-year-old and heading up there, and no family, no friends, no anything up there, and just diving right into school.
And what was the school that you went to?
This one was called the Music Tech. So Musicians Training Center, basically. And that was, that was the only place I thought that was going to be the best for me and what I wanted to learn, you know, really. So, but yeah, Music Tech. And then since then they've gone through a transition to the McNally Smith School of Music, and then now that school's defunct now too. So we were down in the Warehouse District in Minneapolis, and we were living in an apartment there in St. Louis Park, which is a suburb of the area, and pretty much school full time, working at a convenience store part time, you know, across the street just to make a couple bucks, you know, and just starting really to hash my way through all of that, learning how to read music, learning the theory. We'd have a little bit of, you had to take like almost like a class, like out of your area, you know, out of your comfort area in a way, like keyboards or drums or vocals or whatever. So you just to keep learning all that stuff, music economy, how all that works, the music industry works, and how to make some money, or how all that stuff works if you get a publishing deal, and all that kind of fun stuff. And then we'd have ensemble classes where they'd have a person from the guitar department, bass department, vocal department, percussion department, and then you form a band, and then you just kind of work through some tunes, and then we all put on a performance, you know.
It sounds great. It sounds like a real hands-on.
Yeah.
experience. Any teachers that you remember that in particular that made an impression?
Oh yeah, yeah. We had, I mean, which was really cool because you had the variety of those teachers. So we had Dan Breeze, um, who was the technical master. You know, he was coming from Berkeley. Um, he just had the sickest chops. You know, just really tight, really precise. New theory, up and down, backwards, forwards, just crazy. And so him and our head of the bass department in the day, who's a local Albuquerque bass player, Terry Burns. He
Oh,
was the head
yeah.
of the bass department.
No kidding. Shout out to Terry Burns.
That's right.
Wow.
Love you, Terry. And because he's from Clovis.
Oh my goodness.
So we had that big connection.
Okay.
You know? And so, and then also Anthony Cox, who was a bass instructor off and on there. And Anthony Cox was just a monster bass player, just, you know, double threat, you know, same with Terry, you know, just electric and acoustic just was like, forget about it, you know. And those guys were the, you know, pretty much A-listers in town too, you know, getting the gigs, doing all the cool work, doing the corporate gigs, doing any commercial work, you know, and all that fun stuff up there. So those guys just were instrumental. And Terry and Dan wrote the curriculum there. They wrote all the books, all that stuff, which I still have, you know, because it's always fun to go and revisit a lot of that technical stuff, or just of how they approach a lot of their scale, you know, because even Terry was just like, just all patterns, man. You know, once you learn those patterns for all the modes, you can do it. It doesn't matter what key it's in, you know, it's the same shape.
You know, there's no wrong way to put music together in your mind. Whatever makes sense to you. You know, I was talking about this with my Jessica, and I was we were talking about how you know, sometimes there's this notion that, you know, if you study music theory, or you know a lot of music theory, it will make you suffer in the artistic department, or it'll make you play with less feeling or something like that.
Right.
You know, have you ever kind of heard that?
Yeah.
Kind of, and
yeah, man. And it's like, that's how they're like, just, you know, take it all in and then forget it.
And then forget it. I feel like a lot of music theory is observations.
Yeah.
We're making observations about the music. You know, how do you count it? What is the tonal center of that section? You know, you're just observations about the music, really.
Yeah.
And
it's like the more that they just keep teaching us, the more that we're doing ear training, the more that we're doing music theory, you know, it's like our music theory teacher there, you know, Jay Fuchs, was all about the Beatles, because you could learn so much about movement, chordal movement and everything else just by listening to the Beatles and studying a lot of their stuff. You know, it just is super cool. New 2/5s to new 1s, you know, or all that kind of stuff, you know, and just of how that they're navigating a lot of that stuff. And even Terry, just of chord substitutions, going through the real book, whatever, you know, just of, you know, some of these cats are going, you know, the 2/5s to new 1s, but also 3/6 2/5s to different ones, or they're doing a 2/5 to a different one to get back into, you know, it was like, what is happening? Like, that's so, you know, and these cats have just done it so many times that they hear a keyboard player starting to hint at something. And so they're already just picking up and doing that same kind of a thing right away. It's just, so it just helps ingrain in us you know, which is always the key, is to keep your ears open, really be listening as to what little hints here and there, you know, as to what could be happening next, you know? So,
yeah,
it's not just what's written in the book. It's however someone else is interpreting it as they go along, you know, or however they might've been taught or heard from a different version from someone else's recordings, you know?
Yeah.
So
I dig it.
Yeah.
You know, it can be kind of a drag when you play with a musician that sort of is so married to the way a song goes. They're like, no, it goes this way. And it's like, okay, we'll play your way. But it's not very democratic,
right.
You know. It's good to, you know, maybe play the shit that you think is hip. I'm not saying not to do that, but just, you know, also listen to what other people are doing and maybe compromise sometimes. You know, I think it's something that guitar players and piano players have to deal with more than bass players.
Sure.
Because they're dealing with the 913, 911 13, like all those extension flavors, where we're kind of like playing roots and fifths and thirds and
Right.
a little chromatic thing here and there, and
Yeah.
and
Just trying to hold it down while they let them do their thing over it, most of the time, just trying to keep that thing flowing and grooving.
yeah,
Because that's the main thing that Terry always taught too, man. It's got to groove. If you ain't grooving, and if it ain't happening, then the whole thing just goes to hell, in a way. So it's like, you just got to be sitting there, and he was, talk about a groove player, man. Terry Burns, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
groove is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like a lot of jam band music has a really good balance of groove and improvisation, because people can dance to it and it's fun.
Right.
And if people can dance, then it's a party, it's officially a party.
Exactly right. Get the booty shaking, then it's a party.
It's a party. Yeah. And then it, it becomes another level of a musical event, when once people start dancing. So,
Yeah.
Whereas music that's just so hardcore listening, so analytical, and it's just listening music. It's not dancing music.
Right.
It's not party music.
Right.
And I love that too. And I want to do that too in my life. But the most fun I have is when people are dancing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you have your own design of the Steal Your Face logo, with like a New Mexico take on it, which is super cool.
Right.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
Where did you get that idea from?
Man, I was working at the shop, machinist. So I was working at the machine shop and just thinking about it and thinking about how I had seen some other state outlines in a way with the lightning bolt through it, and just kind of similar to the Steal Your Face and with the skull and what's inside of that, and it's like how sometimes that would change, just kind of based on just different ideas, heads were having at the time, just to kind of incorporate that, we're still a Deadheads, but here's kind of like our local flavor kind of a thing, so just taking that and then just doing the lightning bolt through there, kicking it off at the right angle, just like, how they have that in the Steal Your Face, and just kind of so we could have our own thing, I haven't seen one. And so that was probably born, over 10 years ago, that I came up with that, and my good friend Mike Gertis helped me out, just kind of laying it out and getting a digital draft made of it, and then just went downhill from there, I guess, or uphill, however you want to say it. Just, all over the place. I've seen them on cars all over the state, which has been pretty fun. I used to sell them on Etsy, used to sell them at the shows, people were all excited about it in the bass community on Facebook. So it's just, it's kind of blown up, which has been really cool for me to see. So,
yeah, that's cool. Well, you're celebrating the Grateful Dead culture, and you're celebrating New Mexico at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is just cool.
Yeah. You can kind of see, like, the community part of it all too, of like, yeah, man, I'm part of this group. I'm part of just, I love the music, and I love New Mexico, and I love all of our, family here, So,
yeah. And I know that, local pride is a thing,
Mm-hmm.
And,
definitely.
Yeah, it's cool. And speaking of local Grateful Dead action, you're pretty involved with that, right? You play in a Grateful Dead sort of tribute band, right?
Yeah, man.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, man, it was started for me with all that stuff in about 2015, and just of answering a call to where Phil Lesh, where are you? That I saw in a Craigslist ad, and it was
so someone literally took out a Craigslist ad.
And that's all it said. Phil Lesh, where are you?
Wow. Wow.
So, I had my I had my VW bus at the time too, and showed up to the audition, and I hadn't really ever, it's like, for me as a bass player, it's like I don't really sit along and try to play along with a lot of that stuff, because it's not really the hooky kind of a bass line, you know what I mean? It's like there are moments where Phil Lesh has that's the bass line people are waiting for, certain little riffs here and there, but it's not like it's something that everyone just knows, or that you just are humming along to like a Phil line or whatever, or you're just stomping your feet just to like, yeah, Phil's in the pocket there, whatever. Because Phil's, he could be in the pocket if he wants, but for the most part, he is interweaving and listening to Jerry and listening to everything that's going on, and just being that really melodic line in there that just makes it very interesting. There's so much stuff happening, and you're just like, well, there is no real solid bass line there. It's the two drummers that are locking you in, to a lot of that stuff.
Interesting.
And then everything else is just listening and improvisation, pretty much.
So would you say that he's had a pretty significant like influence on your playing?
Yeah. And I mean, even now, even when I play a lot of the Dead stuff, the part of that I latched on to is just the listening aspect of it, and listening to what our guitar player is doing, and trying to play along with him, trying to build him up in a way and kind of enhance some of that as far as like the melodic part of it goes. But then I will definitely lay into it and like lay into more of like a pocket playing and some of that stuff, just to get people moving, get things going. And I mean, that's just my comfort zone, I mean, I'm not a great soloist. I, don't pretend to be. And it's like, I just like to, I mean, I really do like to follow along, with their chord progression stuff, and really play along with that, and really try to do the best that I can with what I know how to do, to give my interpretation of Phil, the best that I can. I don't, no one's Phil. No one really does it as great as he does, in my opinion. But there's some people that, try to really just follow that, follow his lead. But a lot of it's just really, for me, just getting the groove going, getting the band going, getting the people going and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I interpret a lot of that with Let It Grow, and then even differently with the Long Kalanka band, who does a lot more of the Jerry Garcia band stuff with that bass player John Kahn, who is a very much, soulful, bluesish inspired bass player, which is definitely something that I connect with a lot more, as far as that playing goes, and what I'm comfortable with. And so it's really fun having the two of those kind of bands, playing different gigs or whatever, and just being able to, take one hat off and put on another hat in a way, as far as like my bass playing stuff, so.
Yeah. So you have one group that you have a little more license to be experimental and lyrical. And then the other band is, I use the word meat and potatoes, just
for sure. Yeah.
But not that it's only meat and potatoes.
Right.
Like, there's spices in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely more experimental with the Let It Grow, and just even waiting for some of that space, just letting things ring for a while and not have to always feel like you have to play to put something down. It's like space is just as powerful as playing, when a lot of that stuff goes. The notes that you don't play, the times, even like whole measures that you're just letting things just kind of just evolve into the next, what's next, and just listening to what Tony's doing on the keyboards, or the drums, or what's Lon doing, and all that. And then just kind of slowly just playing with that, maybe a little upper register stuff, just kind of whatever, some chordal stuff, just play along, just kind of build the atmosphere, build the energy with that. Yeah, I love all that stuff.
That's exciting. Yeah, that makes me want to go listen to you guys and vibe out. That sounds wonderful. Yeah. Um, so that was kind of pre-pandemic when you were doing some of that work in Albuquerque,
Hmm.
and then fast forward to like during the pandemic. Boy, that was really scary. All the musicians in the world just went home. I
Right.
remember Yo-Yo Ma was like playing to his camera phone from his hotel or whatever, and it's just like, wow, everybody went home.
Yeah.
And that was kind of devastating and life changing. Um, but post pandemic, I feel like people are even almost more excited about live music now than they were pre pandemic. Have you experienced that at all? What's your take on that?
I think kind of with our scene, it was pretty heavy before, yeah, and then people just kind of course, forced to lay low, and yeah, people are very anxious to get back out and enjoy live music in a way. They're not so freaked out by all the humbug of all that kind of stuff, and I think it's kind of, yeah, maybe a little bit more exciting, but I think it was kind of, we had a pretty good vibe before and after even, it's like I didn't notice a bigger increase in a lot of that stuff, but just more of the, I guess, the anxiousness of wanting to get out, because you don't have to be cooped up anymore, and go out and check out who's coming into town, or go see your favorite band or whatever. So
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful that society and our culture in general has less of a tendency to take live music for granted now, and that we had to
right.
be without it for so long, and that's really something I think about a lot.
Yeah.
Well, we have something. We have a lot in common.
We do, man.
Yeah, one thing we have in common is we both played bass in church,
Yeah.
kind of a lot throughout our lives,
Right.
and it's been great for me, and it's been kind of a staple in my life. I recently stepped down from the church that I was playing at, just to like kind of refocus my life and make a few changes, but hoping to get back into a church, sometime. And I haven't always played for the same church, but it's most of my life I've been employed. I can use that word, right? Employed.
Yeah, man.
By a church, and yeah, I know there's a lot of musicians out there that play church and feel like they don't want to take money for that because that's their service from their heart, But I think it's okay to take a payment for playing music, also, depending on your situation. So it's been kind of like a help in my life to have a church to play at, and stuff like that. And how's your experience been being a church bass player, and what would you say about that experience in your life, and how different is that than just a regular gig, do you think?
Oh man, it's I started playing in my wife's church back in Cruces at First Baptist down there, and that was, it was, non-paying gig. It was really just kind of experience, just something just to keep playing. It was great players down there that were kind of come through. I just felt it more as another thing under my belt, just a chance just to see music and be able to play and be a part of it all, and being, and even along with my faith too, it was, I wasn't a very strong believer, really getting new into that. I'd been confirmed as a Catholic, going through high school and everything else. But, a lot of stuff I just did for my parents, in a way. I didn't really get much out of it as far as like it building up my faith in God or any of that stuff. Just kind of a naive kid and just kind of dumb and just whatever, let's just do that. And so, really when we got up to Minneapolis and did some of that become a little bit lucrative, in a way where they felt obligated to pay their musicians, and so, church we were playing at then was a evangelical free church, and then just got kind of was able to play in some other churches around the area that obviously felt obligated to pay, and it was like, that's wonderful, that's great. But kind of what you're saying in a way too, it's like, and even now in the church situation I'm in, it's like I don't get paid for it, and it's just really, and it is kind of something for me just to give back in a way of what I felt is just as a gift that's God's given me, in a way, just some skill and some talent that I can at least share and just give back to the church, and just to be a part of that community, with other musicians there, and met wonderful people all along the way. And you kind of see some of the musician cats just a little bit bummed that they're not making money doing that kind of stuff, because they're full-time musicians, and so that they want something like that to be a part of their income and, all that. So, I've just never really felt they want to pay me. That's great. If not, it's not not why I'm there.
So it sounds like you've done a combination. You've done both paying church gigs and non-paying church gigs. And yeah. And it depends on where you're at in your life. And, I always say, well, you pay the secretary probably, and the sexton,
Right.
pay the bass player. But yeah, and no judgment on all the wonderful church musicians that do it from just from their heart.
Exactly.
And, your treasure's up in heaven, straight up.
Mm-hmm.
I want my treasure here, though, and in heaven.
Right.
But, if that's what you do, that's what you do. And it's,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. And let's check out these basses. You got some pretty sick basses going on right here. And I love that they both have their own strap.
Yes.
And that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So if I came to see you at church, what bass might you be playing?
Sometimes it depends. Mostly I've been playing my newer bass, my Modulus 6-string, which has been a kind of a game changer in a lot of ways. Just really, it's like you hear everything on that bass, warts and all, and everything rings true and clear, and there's no buzzing, there's no anything else on that bass. It just is
precise.
It's precise, like playing a piano in a way, but my Warwick's just been my baby since I think I picked that thing up in late '98.
That's got soul.
And it's a '96 model Corvette that I got over at Torp's Music up in Minneapolis. My first 5-string, my first high-end bass in a way. I was coming from an Ibanez Sound Gear SR 1200, which was like kind of like my first really also nice bass in a way that I got at Lucchetti's Music here in town back in the day. And lost out on that at a shop there in Minneapolis that I had it for sale at. And the shop went bankrupt, and I never got my check for my bass after it sold. So kind of a drag from that, but it's like whatever. It's
like the world took one back or something.
It happens,
Yeah, they owe you one.
So
the universe owes you a bass.
And it's like this guy here has just been. I've always been a big fan of Warwick, the sound, and talk about difference in neck too. Going from my Ibanez, really thin, really fast neck to this neck, which was more of like half of a baseball bat in a way,
Yeah, I've kind of heard that about the Warwick necks, that they're kind of a little beefier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this bass has been through a lot of different configurations as far as pickups and electronics and
oh yeah,
all that stuff. So what I'm sporting now on there is all Nordstrand pickups, custom 70s wound, custom spacing for this tighter string spacing for a 5-string.
Mm-hmm.
And going to the preamp that's really, I've just been a big fan of all of Kerry Nordstrand stuff, out in Redlands, California. And went out there and picked it up after they got a hold of it and did all the, reshielding of everything. And
wow,
a lot of the new preamp, I had Devin Klein make me some matching knobs all there to match the fretboard.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh things are a lot different on that. So that's a passive active if I need it. And
brass nut.
The brass nut, brass frets too. They use brass a lot of the same alloy that they use in like church bell kind of stuff, just for the fact of how it rings and sustains and whatnot.
That shit's crazy.
So yeah,
that is a hunk of wood on that,
right? And that's actually a newer neck. I had my truss rod break on my original neck.
Oh, wow.
And so that one I just got maybe within like last summer, I think, is when I finally picked up that neck.
Wow.
So that's
what a great bass.
Pulled off from the assembly line in Germany. And, you pay a pretty penny for that neck, nowadays and stuff. And so it's a little bit different than the original. They did the volute back here, which they didn't have on the original necks.
Right.
But it's still, the wood is the same. Everything else is basically the same. I kept my old nut because that's my favorite nut there, the Adjusta nut, where you can pretty much a set screw for each one of those that can screw up or down.
Look at that.
And so just depending on what gauge strings you're using and how you want to have that set up.
Wow.
So
what kind of strings do you like to use?
Well,
It just kind of what's
man,
on.
I went through. It's like back in the day, back in my really big, just like I want to try everything out. I want to do this and that, all the way to calling Carl Thompson, and talk to him about strings, and he was telling me about Claypool's strings to Jeff Berlin's strings, and the difference about how they play too, because Claypool's four string bass, he was using like 240s and 280s or something crazy were his strings for his four string. He wasn't really going with the low, but also he had the whammy bar on his four string Thompson, So it's been like from Slinkies to Dunlops to I've really liked the Warwick Black Label strings for a long time. To DR strings, and now a lot of the times that I use is Kurt Mangan strings out of Colorado.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that.
Yeah, really good strings.
Yeah, is that what you have on here now?
Yeah, and so
Okay.
that's the Brady McElroy signature strings that's where I heard about him was Kurt Mangan was from Brady McElroy, who's had McElroy basses out of Texas. That's what he would string them up with. Just really nice nickel, really smooth, and that's what I really started to find out just between the stainless, the nickel, the wrap strings, all those different things, So I've been really just sold on a lot of the nickel style strings. This one I have actually just the Ernie Ball Slinkies on this one, and I've actually been really liking those too. Modulus makes a great. I don't know who makes their strings for him, but Modulus brand's got a really good string too.
Yeah, I feel like the right answer is whatever strings you have, those are the strings.
That's it. What dies faster or what doesn't, that's kind of what I found, and thankfully I'm not like I've heard cats, who just kill strings right away, just really sweaty players or just their chemistry and how they're, oils or whatever. And so, thankfully strings last a long time for me. I'm not one of those, never change your strings. Just, it's all, that's the whole vibe of it all. And it's like, man, it's like, if it starts to die, that I'm killing my fingers trying to get some tone out of it or something. For me, in a way, it's like I like kind of like that newer string vibe in a way, But
yeah, there's a lot of
it's always the to each their own, with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's I think when you have a fresher string, I think what you get is more overtones and more of that information as part of the sound, as opposed to just a thuddy fundamental with a strong fifth overtone or something like that.
Yeah, blues players, guys doing that stuff, that vibe, I can see you want kind of like that really soulful, kind of just the thuddy, deep thing. But it's like, depending on obviously the style, like solo bass players, like Michael Manring or some of those guys, who harmonics popping everywhere and this and that, I could see how fresh strings very often would be beneficial for a lot of that stuff, So
it's
just
true.
To get as much as that brightness and clarity, that you're just not going to quite get with some funky old couple decade old strings,
know. Yeah, it's interesting. And, I think as I get older, I'm a little more okay with the dead strings, but at the same time, it's nice when you have some fresh action.
Yeah. And bass strings aren't the cheapest things in the world. It's not like when you're looking at guitar player guys buying a whole brick of guitar strings is what we pay for a set of our strings. It's like, what in the heck?
And it makes it a little difficult to experiment too, because it's an expensive process.
Yeah.
Like, well, what about those? I don't know. I guess we'll have to buy some and try them out. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Do you like to play passive or do you like to play active electronics?
I really like to do active for a long time. I think just because I like to have a little bit more control, and I like to have the bass, mid, treble, boost, and all that kind of stuff. And really, even just with my Warwick, I've been doing passive mode for the longest time too. But really, I do like active stuff, you know. I mean, and it just depends on the situations. I mean, sometimes I found that the active was a little bit too buzzing, or get that little hiss sound in the studio or whatever, and they're just like, what's an old pat, like, just get an old Fender or something, man. It's like, you're not going to have any issues with that kind of stuff. So my 4 string that I have that I didn't bring tonight is just passive, and it sounds just great.
Yeah.
So as the older I get too, it's just like whatever. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it all works. I'm not like, trying to get everything out of, I mean, the modulus sounds just great too. I mean, and that's an active bass, but when I go back to this guy in passive mode, it's just as great to me too, so.
Yeah, I didn't know that they put brass frets on their instruments. That's interesting.
Right.
That's cool.
They're softer, so depending on how heavy of a player you are, I mean, you could work those strings right into them pretty well.
Yeah.
So just get the groove and worked into them pretty easily.
Wow,
so,
that's cool. That's cool.
But yeah.
That's cool. What are you looking forward to in the Albuquerque music scene and in your projects and what's going on? What do you got looking forward to?
Oh man, it's after kind of a long hiatus for me. I think kind of after really July, early August, things have kind of died off for me, just personally, just having some family things that we've been trying to take care of, and also just kind of rethinking about what I want to kind of get involved with kind of from here on out, and what some of it was, I was actually losing some joy in some of that stuff, and and just I was getting kind of more rudimentary in my playing, and just not as happy, just of what I was doing, and what seemed to be in a lot of things that just were just kind of, I don't know, what am I doing here, kind of a thing, and I hated that. I didn't want to be in a situation to where it's like, this isn't making me happy, why continue with some of this stuff, so it's been a lot of self-reflection these last almost several months, in a way, just even till like our next gigs and even other rehearsals that we just haven't been doing anything. And like I say, it's been actually kind of refreshing for me just to be home a lot of the nights, and not have to worry just about coming home from work and then just going straight to rehearsal, and being able to be home with my wife and daughter. And she's never seen me so much since we've been married, it's just, she loves, and it's been great. So I'm really looking forward in a way just to get a lot of that joy back into what I'm doing, change around some projects, and looking forward to some new projects too, and continuing things with our, Lon Kalanka, my really good friend, who's our guitar player in the bands, and just our new involvement with our really good buddy Brian Melvin, who's been on the music scene since like forever, it seems like. I mean, he's got albums back into the 70s, and the early 80s, playing with Bob Weir and Jaco Pastorius, I mean, they were really good friends with Brian Melvin back in the day. And Brian is just a whole fresh perspective into even playing dead music with him, because he just is so non-traditional as far as like how the Dead would play their stuff. I mean, he brings a lot of jazz aspects to it, which is really cool, and just a lot of stuff that really keeps you on your toes and really keeps you listening to what's happening, and it's kind of fun just to be up there and just listening to what he's doing, and just kind of smile as it's going on, just going, whoa, okay, like, yeah, man, and that's great. That's what I want, that kind of stuff, not just of like, here we go again, same tune, just waiting for that stuff, I mean, it's like, there's comfort in some of that, but it's like, if you're doing that all the time, it's like, here we go again, kind of a thing. It's like, how do I want to be approaching that, So I'm really looking forward to more of that, and just maybe even some new projects, It's like, I don't know, just kind of taking it as it comes. not hurrying into things, because that's always where I tend to be more, what am I doing? What am I doing? I don't need to be so this busy in a way. So it's like, thankfully I have a day gig and I always have, so I don't know, I find it amazing how some musicians can be full-time musicians. I mean, it's like, bravo to them and good for them. It's like, cause that they've found it, they're working it. And it's like, I don't know. I've never found that key yet, but
Well, time is precious.
it is, and it's like, I love what I do during my day gig, I mean, it's, putting bread on the table and providing for the family. And, it's been that kind of security in a way that I just could never find yet through music, and being that busy in a way. So, but it is what it is. And I've found my sweet spot.
Yeah.
So,
And it sounds like you're ready to do music where you find some purpose in it
yeah.
and
Yeah.
some meaning in it. And
Right.
because time is precious, like you said, you could be home with your family,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got to be, kind of worth it. And, someone like yourself, you've already made, big sacrifices with your career choices to provide for your family. So you don't have to take the gig that's just okay, or
Right.
that gig that you don't want to do, but it pays well, so you kind of need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to
Right.
play those games. You can go out of your house with your bass with, what do I want to do? What's interesting to
Right.
me? What sounds interesting to me, and what do I want to play, and who do I want to play with?
Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
And really, since that break too, it's really just, the personal side of it too, just of really changing a lot of like just different habits, just from being, in a way too, of just being the whole, just getting burnt out of through, a lot of smoking weed and playing, and everything else, and just kind of getting to that, just here I am again doing the same thing. I mean, it's like, and by the end of the night, just so worn out and just brain dead in a way, and just of that was kind of burning me out a lot, just as far as not making me happy anymore. Was just kind of like the same humdrum stuff of like, okay, well, we're going to get high and we're going to play for the next 3 hours or whatever, and it was like, same thing. Here we go again. Rehearsals, same thing. Here we go again, and it just was, like literally just so burnt out of playing, and just my brain burnt out, and just of my attitude burnt out, my happiness burnt out, so it's been a nice refresh and restart for me just to get back into a more present mindset that I haven't been in a long, long, long time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think about being a musician, and the alcohol and the drugs is kind of a what do you call it, a workplace hazard.
Very much so.
Something like that,
Yeah.
like a workplace hazard. So and you got to figure it out for yourself and go through it and stuff like that. But it's definitely something that and it's good that you're getting a break from it, to not take it for granted too, because it's like, if you're just smoking all the time, and it's easy to take it for granted too.
Yeah, and just kind of not be that, it kind of starts to become a little bit more of your persona and your personality, and it's like, that's, what people are expecting, and I just didn't want to be in that, just be in that mindset, this all the same, or like, here he is, he's probably going to be, just totally high or something, when he comes out, or just, but it kind of made me a little bit more even, I don't know, just not wanting to talk as much to people or whatever, just because, just so burnt, it was like, I don't even, what conversation are we going to have? Like, what are we going to talk, whatever, or am I even going to remember any of that? I mean, just, there was so much going on in my brain and not going on in my brain that it just was, just needed to be done with a lot of that stuff. And, I mean, it's a lot of part of that. I mean, especially with the dead scene, and the psychedelic scene, whatever, there's just that's really what fuels a lot of that stuff, and it's just, we got to learn our limits, and we got to learn how to take breaks, and just,
Yeah.
and get back to center again,
You know what I love to do is I just love to party with people, uh, even if I'm not doing the same drugs or whatever that they're doing, just to hang out and just
Yeah.
like it's cool. Yeah, well, it'll be cool to see like what you do in your life coming up, because it seems like you have this whole kind of fresh reset going, kind of in a very major way, like with even with your kind of easing off the cannabis and stuff like that. It's inspiring.
Yeah, it's really starting to change even a lot of like the different music that I'm listening to now than what I was. I mean, not so like, let's listen to this year from the Dead or whatever. Like, let's just go through all this stuff. It was just so much Grateful Dead over and over and over and over again. I mean, which is it's not always bad, but still, it's just as like, man, I like some new stuff. I'm really into like, ambient music. I mean, I really like even, Thievery Corporation. I mean, I like Tycho. I like a lot of these different, just more, just kind of mood groove kind of stuff. It's like I really dig a lot of that stuff. Like some dub music. I mean, just so much. I'm all over the map when it comes to music. From classical to jazz to some blues. I mean, it's like, give it to me. But it's like during the day, even at work. It's just really just a lot of ambient, just chill, electronic kind of stuff. I love that. So
Yeah.
That's kind of where I've been drawn to a lot more lately, just with a lot of that stuff. So
that's cool.
We'll see what happens.
That's cool. So thank you so much for your time,
of course,
Kelly.
Man. Thank you, Justin.
You're the best, man.
No,
thank
you're
you.
the best. I appreciate you.
You're a good example.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Of course.
All right, peace.